The story begins with two childhood friends chasing the same dream. Sasha celebrates receiving a powerful blessing, while Heiss confidently believes his own baptism will give him an equally impressive ability so they can adventure together. After Sasha finishes her ceremony, Heiss waits for his turn with complete faith in their shared future. He imagines that one good blessing is all he needs to stand beside her as an adventurer. In this world, a person's blessing can determine the direction of their entire life. Heiss steps forward, believing the gods are about to reveal the power that will let him follow Sasha into the adventuring world. Heiss receives a blessing called Weapon Master. The name sounds impressive, but the card offers almost no useful explanation, leaving everyone unsure what the mysterious ability is actually supposed to do. Even experienced adults cannot make sense of Weapon Master. Since Heiss cannot activate it or demonstrate any obvious effect, the blessing that once sounded exciting quickly becomes a source of uncertainty. With no known way to use his blessing, Heiss is forced to accept that Weapon Master may be useless. The disappointment is especially painful because Sasha's own ability has already placed her on a much clearer path. 2 years later, Heiss is still adventuring with Sasha's party, Sacred. The group is rising rapidly in rank, but Heiss remains the weakest member and struggles to contribute beyond carrying supplies and handling minor support work. Sacred continues hunting monsters, while Heiss stays near the rear. Sasha fights at the front with the others, and the gap between their battlefield roles has become impossible to ignore. Sasha and the senior members coordinate another expedition, while Heiss is again treated as someone who needs protection. Even when he wants to help, the party's structure gives him very little room to prove himself. Sacred's reputation has climbed toward the upper ranks, but the individual rankings inside the team reveal the problem. Nearly everyone has grown stronger while Heiss remains at the bottom. Because Weapon Master still appears unusable, the party prepares for another difficult hunt. Reynold looks exhausted but stays focused on protecting the group, while Sasha accepts the responsibility of leading everyone into increasingly dangerous battles. Before entering the monster's territory, Sasha reviews the formation. Reynold will guard the rear, Piasola will provide ranged magical offense, and the remaining members will support the front line, while Heiss stays out of the main fight. Sacred follows the plan and advances toward the target. Heiss remains behind the combat line, watching Sasha and the others take positions against an enemy that is far beyond anything he can handle alone. Their opponent finally appears, a gigantic queen cobra. The monster towers over the party, immediately confirming that this hunt will demand the full strength of Sacred. Sasha engages the queen cobra head-on. Although Heiss desperately wants to help, he knows that stepping into the fight without a usable combat blessing could create another problem for the people already protecting him. Sacred unleashes its abilities in rapid succession, using specialized blessings and teamwork to damage the giant serpent. Heiss can only watch as the others perform the kind of high-level combat he once dreamed of sharing with Sasha. The Queen Cobra breaks through Sacred's defense, and Reynold struggles to hold the line. The party's rear position is suddenly exposed, placing Heiss in the path of an attack he was never meant to face directly. A strike reaches Heiss before he can escape. He is thrown violently aside, forcing the others to divert attention toward protecting the weakest member while the Queen Cobra remains active. After the danger passes, Sasha angrily tells Heiss to stop creating trouble and stay still. Her frustration comes from the battlefield situation, but the words hit Heiss hard after years of feeling like deadweight. Sacred eventually defeats the Queen Cobra and begins checking the remains. Among the aftermath, Heiss notices an unusual item connected to the mysterious Weapon Master blessing. Back in town, Heiss studies images and information associated with Weapon Master. A strange weapon appears in the material, but he still has no idea how such an unfamiliar object could relate to his blessing. The tension inside Sacred finally reaches its breaking point. Sasha tells Heiss that he should leave the team, explaining that their growing rank and the increasing danger make it impossible to keep carrying a member who cannot fight at their level. Heiss is stunned as the others prepare his share of the party's money and belongings. Sacred wants to become one of the best teams in the kingdom, and his presence is now being treated as something that could hold them back. Reynold gives Heiss a final pat and tries to soften the farewell, but the decision has already been made. Heiss realizes that the friends he once expected to adventure with no longer see a place for him in sacred. Reynold formally tells Heiss that his unusable blessing and the increasingly dangerous missions make his position impossible to justify. The party's battles have grown too hard for someone who cannot contribute in combat. Heiss hears the final decision and can barely respond. Sacred is officially removing him, severing the team connection that had tied him to Sasha and their childhood promise. Humiliated and furious, Heiss snaps that he does not need them. He declares that he will leave and refuses to give up on becoming an adventurer, even if he has to continue completely alone. Sasha tries to say something as Heiss walks away, but he is too angry to listen. He slams the door behind him and chooses isolation, rather than hearing anything that sounds like pity. After Heiss leaves, the remaining members discuss the decision. Sasha is clearly uneasy, yet Sacred still believes removing him is necessary if they want to survive the stronger missions ahead. 2 months later, rumors already describe Heiss fighting alone and taking down groups of goblins by himself. His results are modest compared with Sacred, but he is stubbornly building experience without depending on anyone. While moving through town, Heiss unexpectedly runs into Sasha again. Their old closeness is gone, and even a simple meeting now carries the weight of everything that happened when he was expelled. Sasha tells Heiss about a location south of the area where useful materials and herbs can supposedly be gathered. Heiss listens cautiously, still unsure how much he should trust anything connected to his former party. Heiss follows the information and heads toward the distant gathering spot. Sasha watches him go, unaware that the area contains a danger neither of them has properly accounted for. The journey leads Heiss into a beautiful field filled with flowers and useful plants. For a moment, the peaceful landscape makes the trip seem worthwhile and gives him hope that solo adventuring might finally work out. Heiss gathers materials while thinking about the dream he once shared with Sasha. Even after being expelled, part of him still wonders whether their promise could somehow have survived in a different form. The calm ends instantly when an enormous dragon appears above the field. Heiss realizes far too late that the gathering area is inside the territory of a monster he has no chance of defeating with his known abilities. The dragon attacks before Heiss can escape. He tries to run through the flowers, but the creature's size and speed make retreat nearly impossible. A brutal strike tears into Heiss and sends him crashing across the ground. Injured and terrified, he understands that his ordinary adventuring skills will not be enough to save him. As he struggles to move, Heiss remembers that Sasha was the one who told him about this place. Fear and anger twist together, and he begins wondering whether she deliberately sent him into the dragon's territory. Pinned before the monster, Heiss thinks about Sasha and asks himself whether he had truly become nothing more than an obstacle to her. Yet when death finally feels unavoidable, one thought overwhelms everything else. He does not want to die. Heiss' desperation becomes a refusal to give up. He screams that he does not want to die, clinging to life even though he has no weapon capable of stopping the dragon. At that moment, Weapon Master finally responds. A completely unfamiliar firearm materializes in Heiss' hands, and instinctive knowledge tells him how to use a weapon he has never seen before. Heiss realizes that pulling the trigger will unleash an explosive attack. With no other option, he aims the strange weapon at the approaching dragon and fires. The shot detonates with overwhelming force. The explosion tears into the dragon and turns Heiss' hopeless situation into his first real demonstration of what Weapon Master can do. When the smoke clears, Heiss finally understands that Weapon Master was never useless. The blessing can provide weapons beyond the technology of his world, and the power is enough to kill a monster that should have been far beyond him. Relief quickly turns into bitterness. Heiss laughs at the cruel timing of his awakening and convinces himself that Sasha betrayed him by sending him here, swearing that he will never forget what happened. Back at the Adventurers Guild, Guildmaster Geist congratulates Sacred on reaching A rank. Their rapid rise has made the party famous, but it has also brought increased attention and rumors about the member they expelled. Geist warns that the more famous Sacred becomes, the more people will question why Heiss was removed. Sasha tries to focus on the guild's future, but his name continues following the team. Sasha speaks with Geist about the herb gathering location she had previously recommended. The conversation makes it clear she had treated the information as a normal gathering request, rather than a deliberate death trap. Geist suddenly realizes what location Sasha means and reacts in alarm. The supposedly safe area is actually connected to the territories of an ancient dragon, turning Sasha's earlier advice into a potentially deadly mistake. Before anyone can respond, townspeople begin shouting outside. Heiss has returned alive and brought proof of killing the dragon, causing a crowd to gather around the unbelievable sight. Sasha rushes to Heiss, relieved that he survived, but he meets her with cold anger. Heiss says her plan failed and announces that he killed the dragon, while Sasha has no idea why he believes she wanted him dead. Heiss refuses to hear an explanation. He declares that he has finished trusting other people and will become the strongest using only his own strength. Sasha calls after him, but Heiss walks away before she can properly explain the misunderstanding. The distance between them grows wider because each is reacting to a completely different understanding of what happened. 2 years pass. Heiss now lives as an established solo adventurer, staying at inns between missions and avoiding the kind of long-term party relationships he no longer trusts. His results have carried him all the way to S rank. Known as the Harbinger of Darkness, Heiss has become one of the kingdom's strongest adventurers, despite continuing to work almost entirely alone. A newspaper reports that Sasha, now famous as the Silver Valkyrie, has also reached S rank. Heiss pauses at the news, reminded that both of them reached the level they once dreamed about, just not together. Guildmaster Geist meets Heiss and discusses another high-level request. Heiss insists on handling his work solo, treating independence as both a fighting style and protection against being abandoned again. Geist explains the ranking system for monsters and adventurers, including threats that exceed ordinary S rank standards. Heiss's weapon master remains unusual even among elite blessings, because nobody fully understands where its weapons come from. Heiss is informed about a formal royal ceremony involving the kingdom's highest-ranked adventurers. Even though he prefers avoiding politics, an S-rank adventurer cannot easily ignore a summons from the royal family. Geist casually mentions that Sasha will also attend. Heiss immediately becomes uncomfortable, because time has not erased the resentment he still carries from the dragon incident. Geist questions Heiss's version of events and suggests Sasha may not have intended to hurt him. Heiss admits that he has heard similar arguments before, but the memory of nearly dying still makes forgiveness difficult. Although part of Heiss knows the situation may be more complicated, he remains unable to trust Sasha. The wound is no longer only about being expelled. It is tied to the belief that someone he trusted almost got him killed. Heiss decides that whatever the truth is, he will keep walking his own path. He does not want comrades or a team, and he plans to become the strongest without depending on anyone. Months later, the royal family gathers elite adventurers and issues several formal requests. King Barbaros personally addresses Heiss, Sasha, and the others, as missions are divided among the kingdom's strongest fighters. Prince Cress is assigned alongside Sasha for a mission involving dangerous crystal golems near a strategic fortress. The royal family treats sacred strength as important enough to support national-level operations. Another royal representative begins reading Heiss's assignment. His S-rank status earns him a separate mission designed for someone capable of working in extremely dangerous territory. Heiss is ordered to travel to the sacred mountain of Gazdar and gather the rare eternal moongrass growing near its summit. Princess Miyuan immediately expresses interest in accompanying him. Heiss refuses to let a princess join him, arguing that the mountain is too dangerous and that he works alone. He does not want responsibility for protecting royalty during a mission. The court explains how dangerous the sacred mountain can be, but Mayuane still wants to go. Heiss remains firm, insisting that adding another person would only complicate his work. The king and nobles react with amusement to Heiss's blunt refusal. Very few people would speak so directly to a member of the royal family, but Heiss is far more comfortable fighting monsters than navigating court etiquette. King Barbaros ultimately treats the situation as an exception rather than forcing Heiss to accept a companion. The formal ceremony continues, leaving Miyuani frustrated that her first adventure will not happen as planned. The royal gathering shifts into a casual dinner. With the official business finished, the adventurers and nobles relax enough for lighter conversation. Members of the royal household discuss the requests and thank the adventurers for accepting them. Miyuane's desire to join an expedition becomes another subject of teasing among the people around her. Sasha receives warm thanks from the younger royals for taking on her own mission. The friendly atmosphere highlights how differently Sacred now fits into Heisa society compared with the rough team Heis remembers. Later that night, Heis leaves the crowded gathering and considers getting a drink. He prefers the quiet streets to royal attention, but someone notices him before he can disappear. Geist catches up with Heis and starts another private conversation. He knows Heis still has unanswered questions about Weapon Master and wants to discuss the blessing away from the formal ceremony. Geist explains what he knows about rare master-type blessings and the people who studied them before. He also brings up an ancient book connected to the mystery, admitting that much of it still cannot be deciphered. Heis listens but refuses to let the mystery inflate his ego. Ancient records may explain Weapon Master eventually, yet his immediate plan remains simple. Continue taking missions and becoming stronger. As Heis leaves the castle, Sasha calls out and asks him to wait. After 2 years of distance, she finally tries to speak to him directly about what happened. Sasha begins apologizing, but Heis' anger erupts. He reminds her that she had many chances to explain herself, and says the apology feels painfully late, after the day he nearly died. The confrontation continues the next morning. Heis says he does not need an apology that comes only after years have passed. While Sasha struggles to explain feelings she never managed to put into words, Sasha calls his name as Heis turns away. He tells her that whatever she says now means nothing to him, making it clear that the old trust between them has not been restored. Sasha admits she thought an apology might help, but Heis rejects that idea. He says the dream they once shared has effectively become her dream, and he refuses to let himself be used as an excuse for how Sacred moves forward. Heis explains his own new goal: become the strongest completely on his own. He also tells Sasha that unlike her, he will never discard someone simply because they are weak. He reminds Sasha that she also abandoned the dream they once shared. Even so, Heis tells her to keep chasing her goal of building the best team, whether or not he is part of the picture. The two separate in the rain, both knowing that they cannot simply return to the way things used to be. Their childhood promise still matters, but it now drives them along completely different paths. Heis's next mission centers on eternal moongrass, a rare glowing plant used as a valuable medicinal ingredient. It grows near the peak of the sacred mountain of Gazdar, where dangerous monsters make gathering extremely difficult. Before departing, Heis checks the equipment that supports his solo style: his adventurer card, storage ring, protective coat, weapons generated by Weapon Master, and the ancient book linked to his blessing. Heis visits the Adventurers Guild's main branch for information about the route. The receptionist directs him toward the records and contacts needed to reach the secret mountain safely. Inside the guild, Heis notices an elf adventurer whose appearance immediately stands out. Elves rarely leave their homeland, so seeing one this far from the forest nation catches his attention. Heis dismisses the sight as none of his business, but the elf also notices him. Their paths begin crossing, as both prepare to travel in the same general direction. The elf introduces herself as Prissy, a B-rank adventurer who has traveled far from her home region. She asks Heis about his rank, and is surprised to learn that he is an S-rank who operates alone. Prissy openly comments on how unusual solo S-rank adventuring is. Heis answers with his usual indifference, making it clear he has no interest in recruiting a party, simply because someone finds his lifestyle strange. When Prissy learns that Heis is traveling toward the same region, she asks whether they can share the route. Heis hesitates, not wanting another person attached to his mission. Prissy explains that she is also connected to a royal request and needs to reach the area for her own purpose. Heis agrees to hear her out, but he still refuses to treat the arrangement as forming a party. Meanwhile, Guildmaster Gifrin reviews information about the major clans and the unusual histories tied to master-type blessings. One of those connections leads toward the Forest Nation and the Yggdrasil clan. Geist gives Heis a letter of introduction for the Yggdrasil clan's leader and asks him to deliver it during his trip. Heis accepts, because the clan may possess information about Weapon Master and the ancient book. Heis leaves the royal capital and begins the journey toward the Forest Kingdom. Outside the city walls, the road quickly becomes quieter and more dangerous. When a distant threat appears, Heis draws a firearm and fires. The first shot misses, but he calmly warns that the next one will not, showing how naturally modern weapons have become part of his fighting style. Prissy catches up to Heiss and reveals that she deliberately sought him out. When he asks why she followed him, she says she has a favor that she could not safely ask just anyone to handle. Prisia explains that she also needs eternal moongrass. Her younger sister is gravely ill, and the rare plant may be the only ingredient capable of helping her, which is why Prissy is willing to risk the sacred mountain. Heiss realizes their objectives overlap. Because his royal request also requires eternal moongrass, he agrees that traveling together until they reach the mountain is more practical than wasting time arguing. He still draws a firm boundary. Even if they share the route, Prissy must be able to protect herself. Heiss refuses to promise that he will sacrifice his own mission if she recklessly creates danger. Prisia accepts the condition and says her personal reasons are not Heiss's responsibility. The two begin traveling together as temporary companions, rather than a formal party. Heiss repeats that, whatever happens, Prissy is responsible for her own decisions. She confidently answers that she can handle herself, allowing the uneasy partnership to continue. They properly exchange names before moving on. Almost immediately, the road gives them another monster encounter, forcing the new traveling companions to see how the other fights. Prissy becomes fascinated by Heiss's strange firearm and asks whether it comes from his blessing. Heiss confirms that Weapon Master lets him call forth unfamiliar weapons, whose designs seem to come from somewhere beyond their world. Heiss demonstrates that Weapon Master includes multiple firearms, from handguns to shotguns and grenade launchers. Prissy, who can work with spirits, is equally unusual, and the two begin comparing how differently their blessings function. Heiss cycles through several weapons as they continue the journey, then decides it is time to make camp. Prissy realizes his storage equipment contains far more supplies than she expected from a lone traveler. At camp, Heiss produces ingredients and cooks a proper meal instead of relying on basic trail food. Prissy is amazed that the intimidating S-rank adventurer is also competent at ordinary chores. Prissy praises Heiss's cooking. He explains that he had plenty of practice before becoming a successful adventurer, so making food and handling daily tasks are nothing special to him. After eating, Prissy sincerely thanks him. Heiss is caught off guard by the warmth of her gratitude, especially after spending years keeping other people at a distance. Heiss asks more about Prissy's sister. She admits that saving her is the reason she cannot turn back, and her determination reminds Heiss, uncomfortably, of the kind of loyalty he once associated with Sasha. Their journey reaches the Forest Nation, where an enormous sacred tree dominates the settlement. Prissy identifies it as the symbol and base of the Yggdrasil clan. The story explains the four great clans, powerful organizations whose influence reaches across different nations. Yggdrasil is one of these major factions. Rooted in the Forest Kingdom, Heiss has just entered. Heiss and Prissy arrive at the Forest Nation of Ikopora and present their documents at the gate. The officials confirm their authorization, allowing them to continue toward the Yggdrasil clan. Heiss receives an entrance certificate and shows Geist's letter of introduction. The seal immediately changes how the local officials treat him, since the message is intended for the clan master herself. A guide escorts Heiss toward Yggdrasil's inner sanctuary, while Prissy continues nearby. The staff recognize that Geist's recommendation carries weight, and lead him through areas ordinary visitors would not enter. Heiss is introduced to another piece of unfamiliar technology, an elevator. Even after years using weapons from another world, simple modern-looking devices can still surprise him when they appear in places he does not expect. The elevator takes Heiss to Ibis's sanctuary, a secluded building nestled within the massive tree. He is told that this is where he can meet the Yggdrasil clan's master. Inside, Heiss is formally welcomed. The atmosphere is far less intimidating than he expected from one of the four great clans, though the person waiting for him clearly understands why Geist sent him. Heiss finally meets Ibis, master of the Yggdrasil clan, and one of Geist's old associates. She immediately recognizes the significance of his visit and jokingly calls him Geist's disciple. Ibis reads Geist's letter and laughs at his blunt description of Heiss. The message also asks her to investigate the unusual Weapon Master blessing and any connection it may have to older records. Ibis says she can smell gunpowder on Heiss and directly asks about his firearms. Her reaction proves that the weapons are not completely unknown to people who have studied certain parts of history. Heiss shows her the ancient book he has been carrying. Ibis recognizes it at once, confirming that the object is not merely a random artifact connected to his blessing. Ibis reveals that the book belonged to a man named Nobunaga and is effectively his diary. The name matters because Nobunaga possessed knowledge and equipment strangely similar to Heiss's. Ibis explains that the writing contains ideas from another world, including weapons and concepts that do not naturally belong in their society. Heiss cannot read all of it himself, so her knowledge becomes invaluable. She reads through additional pages and begins translating passages for Heiss. The diary mixes serious clues with very personal comments, making Nobunaga feel less like a legendary figure and more like an eccentric traveler. Some entries are surprisingly mundane and humorous, describing Nobunaga's everyday thoughts alongside extraordinary discoveries. Ibis clearly enjoys the diary far more than Heiss expected. After enthusiastically reading for a while, Ibis decides they have done enough for one visit. She tells Heiss to return if he needs more help, keeping the diary's mysteries open for later. Heiss leaves Yggdrasil and resumes his original mission. Ahead of him lies the sacred mountain of Gazdar, where the eternal moongrass is supposed to grow near the summit. As Heiss and Prissy climb, thick fog covers the mountain path. Prissy can barely see a short distance ahead, making every hidden movement in the mist potentially dangerous. A monster bursts from the fog before the pair can avoid it. Heiss and Prissy react quickly, attacking together, rather than letting the creature exploit the poor visibility. Heiss opens fire with Weapon Master, using repeated shots to drive the monster back. The strange firearm gives him an advantage at range, even when the fog obscures normal sight. Because creatures can hide inside the mist, Heiss uses equipment from Weapon Master to improve his awareness and tells Prissy to stay alert. The mountain is clearly more dangerous than a simple herb gathering route. During a quieter moment, Prissy asks why Heiss is helping her at all. He answers that she is trying to save her sister, and he has no reason to prevent that, even if he refuses to call their arrangement friendship. Prissy thanks him sincerely. Heiss answers awkwardly and keeps walking, uncomfortable with gratitude, but no longer pretending that her situation means absolutely nothing to him. Near the summit, the pair finally see a dragon in the distance. Prissy believes it has left its nesting area to hunt, creating what may be their best chance to collect eternal moongrass. Prissy rushes toward the plants before the opportunity disappears. Heiss warns her that dragons are extremely territorial and tells her not to assume an empty nest means the area is safe. The warning proves justified when another danger appears around the nesting ground. Heiss curses the timing and prepares another weapon before the creature can reach Prissy. Heiss reaches the fight and announces his presence, preventing Prissy from being left alone against the new threat. The two are forced to secure the area before they can focus on the herb. When Prissy finally reaches the expected patch, she is devastated to find almost no eternal moongrass left. The rare plants appear to have been consumed or destroyed before she arrived. A giant elephant-like monster emerges nearby, revealing the likely reason the plants disappeared. The creature has been feeding in the area and now stands between Prissy and any remaining chance to complete her mission. The huge monster attacks, forcing Prissy into close combat. She fires arrows and keeps moving, trying to hurt it without letting its enormous body crush her. Prissy decides that if she can wound the creature badly enough, she may create an opening to escape or search for surviving moongrass. She draws her bow and commits to the fight. Her spirit-infused attack lands, but the monster's durability is far greater than expected. Prissy is shocked that even a strong technique barely slows it down. The creature roars and counterattacks, pushing Prissy into a dangerous position. She keeps firing, but it is clear that she cannot defeat such a massive enemy through ordinary arrows alone. Heiss joins the battle from range, using gunfire to interrupt the monster's attacks. His support gives Prissy room to move before she is trapped. Prissy launches another powerful shot, while Heiss continues firing. Their combined attacks finally begin forcing the monster to react, instead of simply charging through everything. Heiss realizes Prissy is taking unnecessary risks and yells at her to stay back. He moves between her and the monster, unwilling to watch her get herself killed for the sake of one ingredient. Heiss unloads multiple shots and explosives into the creature. When ordinary firepower still seems insufficient, he prepares to escalate to a heavier weapon-master weapon. A massive firearm appears in Heiss's hands. He braces the unfamiliar-looking weapon and fires with enough force to shake the surrounding mountain. The heavy blast tears into the giant monster. The attack finally overwhelms its defenses and leaves the creature badly damaged. The beast collapses, ending the fight. Heiss immediately checks on Prissy rather than celebrating. While she is stunned that he took such a dangerous position to protect her, Prissy realizes Heiss rushed in specifically to save her and becomes visibly flustered. Heiss, uncomfortable with the implication, simply points out that the danger is over and turns his attention back to the mission. Among the aftermath, Prissy finally spots a surviving eternal moongrass glowing near the battlefield. After everything they endured, the rare plant is still within reach. Prissy carefully approaches and confirms that the plant is genuine. Heiss remains nearby, watching for another monster, while she handles the fragile medicinal ingredient. She harvests the eternal moongrass and places it safely inside a container. The item represents the first real hope that her sick sister may recover. Heiss tells Prissy that the collected moongrass belongs to her. His own royal request can be addressed separately, but her sister's immediate need takes priority in this moment. At the mountain path entrance, an older elf named Adra appears and calls for Prissy. His presence reveals that people from the Forest Nation have been searching for her. Adra explains that Prisia is not an ordinary adventurer. She is the younger sister of Queen Alcera, ruler of the Forest Nation of Ecopora, and her unauthorized journey has caused serious concern. Prissy angrily rejects the idea that royal duty should force her to stand aside while her sister suffers. From her perspective, risking her own life was better than simply waiting for Alcera to die. Heiss decides his part in the matter is finished and says goodbye. Prissy watches him leave, understanding that he helped her, despite constantly insisting he had no obligation to do so. Back at the Forest Palace, the weakened Queen Alcera receives her younger sister. Prisia apologizes for disappearing, while the Queen is more relieved to see her alive than angry about the disobedience. Prissy begins explaining what happened on the mountain and how Heiss helped her. The story makes it impossible to maintain the claim that her success came from luck alone. When Alcera sees the eternal moongrass, she immediately understands how much risk Prissy took. Heiss's name becomes tied to the medicine that may save the Queen's life. A few days later, Heiss receives another special request from the royal family. A newly discovered dungeon requires investigation, and his growing reputation makes him a preferred candidate for dangerous assignments. Before Heiss can leave, Prissy catches up and reminds him that she still owes him for helping save Alcera. Heiss asks what she actually wants, suspicious that gratitude is about to become another complication. Prisia explains that her successful mission has given her more freedom from royal duties. She wants to continue adventuring, instead of returning permanently to palace life. She cheerfully proposes following Heiss, not as a formal comrade or teammate, but at least as a traveling companion who can talk to him. Heiss immediately rejects the idea, while Prissy refuses to be discouraged. Elsewhere, Sacred continues its own work. Several members gather before another mission, sharing a light moment before heading toward a dangerous mining region. Sacred has expanded, and the larger group prepares to hunt crystal golems. Sasha stands at the center of the formation as the team reviews the objective. At the crystal mines, Sasha goes over the plan again. The party needs to increase the pressure carefully, lure out the golems, and avoid being surrounded inside the narrow mining terrain. Each member is assigned a role. Sasha and the close-range fighters will engage directly, while archers and support members enhance weapons and cover the formation from behind. With everyone ready, Sasha gives the signal to begin. The team enters the mining area expecting a difficult but manageable crystal golem hunt. Inside the mines, the explorers are surrounded by rich crystal deposits and old mining structures. The beautiful environment is also dangerous, since monsters can emerge from among the formations with little warning. A crystal golem appears. Sacred stops immediately and prepares to engage, treating the creature's heavy mineral body as a serious defensive challenge. The party attacks in formation. Several golems move together, forcing the adventurers to split their attention while still protecting the support line. Sasha notices that the crystal golems are behaving more aggressively than expected. The number and strength of the enemies suggest that something deeper inside the mine may be disturbing them. Sasha activates a technique called double and charges into the golems. Her attack creates the opening sacred needs to keep the monsters from pinning the party against the mining structures. The team follows Sasha's lead with an explosive, coordinated assault. Ranged attacks and close combat overlap as Sacred tries to destroy multiple golems before more can join the fight. A wide barrage tears through the battlefield and knocks several crystal golems away. For a moment, the plan appears to be working exactly as intended. Sasha unleashes Silver Flash, Lotus Strike, a high-speed sword technique that cuts through the remaining enemies and brings the immediate battle to an end. The party celebrates, but Sasha remains uneasy. She felt a strange presence deeper inside the mine, something that does not match the crystal golems they were sent to eliminate. Sasha explains her concern to the others. Although their assigned hunt is technically complete, the sensation she noticed makes her reluctant to leave without checking what is hidden farther in. In the crystal processing area, a mysterious man appears and introduces himself as Crane. He casually reveals that he is a demon, shocking the adventurers who encounter him. Crane explains that demons belong to another realm, separate from the human world, and hints that the boundary between those realms is not as secure as humans believe. Elsewhere in the mine, Sacred discovers evidence that something enormous has been moving through the tunnels. Sasha realizes the irregular monster behavior may be connected to whatever is happening below. The group finds a huge quantity of processed crystal and signs of deliberate activity rather than a natural monster nest. They begin to suspect that someone has been using the mine for another purpose. Crane mocks humans for being drawn toward treasure and valuable resources. His attitude makes it clear that the demon has been observing how adventurers behave and intends to exploit those instincts. Sasha and the others press for answers, but the confrontation escalates. Crane openly admits that the creatures crawling through the mine are part of his plans and shows no concern about the humans caught in the middle. Crane displays a supernatural ability based on raw strength, casually demonstrating power beyond ordinary human skills. He becomes interested in Sasha's own blessing after seeing how she responds. The demon attacks with overwhelming force, dismissing Sacred's techniques as insignificant compared with demonic abilities. Sasha is forced to defend rather than dictate the pace of the battle. Crane targets one of the party members first, but Sasha intercepts the attack. She refuses to let the demon casually kill her companions, simply to prove a point. Crane reveals that he can freely manipulate wind. The surrounding air becomes a weapon under his control, allowing him to strike from directions that are difficult for Sacred to predict. Powerful currents sweep across the battlefield and tear through the surrounding structures. Sacred struggles to keep formation, while the demon controls the entire area with his wind. Sasha refuses to accept Crane's claim that raw power decides everything. She argues that a team can overcome a stronger individual through coordination and prepares to demonstrate that belief. Sacred attacks from several angles at once, forcing Crane to respond to more than Sasha alone. The demon is surprised by how effectively the party turns small individual strengths into one combined threat. Crane retaliates with a large wind attack that tears across the area. Sacred blocks and scatters, surviving the blast but losing the momentum they had just created. Sacred regroups behind defensive abilities, as Crane keeps attacking. Even when his power breaks through their first line, the members protect one another, instead of allowing anyone to face the demon alone. Sasha repeats that teamwork can make them stronger than their individual ranks suggest. Crane treats the idea as amusing, but Sacred's persistence forces him to take their cooperation more seriously. One member is knocked down during the exchange, and Sasha immediately moves to cover them. Her instinct is to preserve the team first, even while Crane continues pressing the attack. Crane deliberately provokes Sasha by threatening everyone she cares about, her friends, her country, and the people she loves. Sasha's anger hardens as the demon makes the fight personal. The clash ends without Sacred getting the answers it wants. Crane disappears from the immediate battlefield, leaving the party with evidence that demons are active in the human realm and planning something larger. Back at Highbeck Kingdom's royal castle, Sasha and the others report the encounter. They explain that Crane openly called himself a demon, giving the royal family its first concrete warning that beings from another realm are interfering with human affairs. Prince Cress and the adventurers receive praise for completing their mission and surviving the unexpected demon encounter. The king also reviews how the separate royal requests turned out. The royal family considers appropriate rewards and future clan-related assignments. Their discussion shows that Sacred and the major clans are now being drawn into threats far larger than ordinary monster hunting. During a calmer meal at the palace, the group finally relaxes after the crystal mine incident. The light atmosphere cannot completely erase the concern created by Crane's appearance. A report arrives from Ikapora explaining that almost all known eternal moongrass had disappeared. Queen Alcera's illness made Precia's single successful harvest even more significant. The conversation turns toward Heiss. The others learn that Precia had been traveling with him during the moongrass mission, surprising Sasha and immediately drawing her attention. Sasha is visibly startled to hear Heiss's name connected to Preci. Meanwhile, Heiss is already back at the Adventurers Guild, where another round of work and administrative trouble awaits him. At the guild, Heiss discovers that the recent emergency has disrupted normal requests. With high-level adventurers being redirected toward larger problems, even an S-rank cannot simply take any job he wants. Preci appears again and starts teasing Heiss while they discuss what to do next. Their temporary journey has ended, but she has clearly decided that disappearing from his life is not part of her plan. Heiss visits the royal capital's used book district in search of clues about Nobunaga and Weapon Master. Old books and forgotten records may reveal things the modern guild system cannot explain. Preci follows him into the market, ignoring Heiss's attempts to treat the trip as personal research. She is curious about the same mysteries and refuses to let him vanish into the shelves alone. The pair enter an old commercial district packed with bookshops and second-hand goods. Heiss searches for anything connected to ancient adventurers, strange blessings, or the otherworld concepts found in Nobunaga's diary. A particular book catches Heiss's attention, possibly recording the adventures of a low-ranked fighter from an earlier era. He reaches for it, hoping the contents might contain another clue. At the exact same moment, another hand reaches for the book. Heiss looks up and finds Sasha standing across from him, turning a simple shopping trip into an awkward reunion. Sasha apologizes automatically, and Heiss gives a stiff greeting. Before either can decide what to say, Reynold and the others arrive and immediately notice the uncomfortable atmosphere. Reynold reacts loudly to seeing Heiss with Sasha, while everyone insists that the meeting was accidental and not a date. Heiss becomes increasingly annoyed by the attention. Sasha admits that there is something she wants to discuss with Heiss. He refuses to have the conversation in the middle of the shop and tells her they can deal with it another time. Later, Preci asks Heiss about the girl from the bookstore. She correctly realizes that Sasha's was the former teammate involved in the painful story. Heiss avoids discussing. Preci directly asks whether Heiss likes Sasha or hates her. Heiss answers by reminding her that he nearly died after following Sasha's information. Even though the full truth behind that incident remains unresolved, Heiss concludes that things cannot simply return to the way they used to be. Whatever feelings still exist, the trust and relationship from their childhood have changed too much for an easy reset. Deep inside another dangerous region, the wounded demon Crane curses the humans who interfered with him. His defeat has not ended the demonic plan. It has only made him more determined to retaliate. Another demon proposes a far more destructive strategy. Trigger a monster stampede. Rather than fighting elite adventurers individually, they can unleash thousands of monsters and let the chaos overwhelm the kingdom. The demons decide that forcing a stampede will provide both destruction and an opportunity to target the adventurers who humiliated them. The threat begins growing, long before the humans realize what is happening. 1 month later, Sacred's influence continues expanding, while the major clans prepare for important changes. News reports highlight the team's rapid growth as the kingdom watches the elite adventuring scene closely. A smaller group called Team 1000 celebrates joining Sacred. Their leader, Roland, thanks his companions and the senior members who gave them the opportunity to grow inside a stronger clan. Roland and his teammates, Kua, Tenna, and Mata, talk excitedly about their progress. The newcomers are still far below Sacred's top fighters, but joining the clan has given them a clear path forward. The young adventurers walk through town together, teasing Roland about how nervous he was when he first joined. Their easy friendship contrasts with the broken relationships that still haunt Heiss. Roland confidently claims it is only a matter of time before they rise further in rank. His teammates immediately mock the boast, turning the ambitious statement into another friendly argument. At the guild, the newcomers catch sight of Heiss returning from a mission. The amount of monster material he brings back alone leaves them staring at the S-rank adventurer they have mostly heard about through rumors. Heiss hands over valuable materials from high-level monsters as though they are ordinary loot. Team 1000 realizes how enormous the gap is between their current strength and the man working quietly in front of them. Before Heiss can leave, he learns that the royal family has summoned every available S-rank adventurer. The scale of the order suggests that the kingdom is facing something far beyond a normal request. The Grand Council room fills with some of the country's most powerful figures, including major clan masters and elite adventurers. The meeting is not ceremonial. Everyone has been called because a national emergency is developing. Reports from a high-level dungeon reveal that monsters are disappearing from their normal floors and unusual movement has been detected higher up. The pattern matches one of the most feared dungeon disasters, a stampede. The council confirms the warning signs. Powerful boss-class monsters have left their usual territories, and the disturbance is spreading upward instead of remaining contained deep underground. The officials recall how destructive a previous stampede became. Tens of thousands of monsters escaped, settlements were erased, and the disaster only stopped after enormous casualties. The current signs suggest another event on that scale. Geist and the other leaders begin mobilizing immediately. Neighboring nations are asked for assistance, troops are prepared, and the adventurer guilds are ordered to cooperate rather than compete. The council tells the assembled adventurers that the kingdom can now rely only on their strength. Everyone is assigned defensive responsibilities as the leaders prepare for a crisis that conventional soldiers cannot handle alone. Maps show how monsters are moving between dungeon levels in abnormal numbers. Heiss questions the pattern, trying to understand why creatures that normally guard lower floors are being driven toward the surface. Some clan masters take interest in Heiss's observations and calm attitude. Sasha also watches him, recognizing that the boy once called Deadweight has become someone national leaders now listen to. 10 days after the emergency meeting, newspapers confirm the worst. The stampede has begun. Monster movement is no longer a prediction but an active disaster spreading toward populated territory. The Adventurers Guild suspends ordinary requests and closes the affected dungeon. Every available fighter is redirected toward defense, rescue, or evacuation. On the day of the stampede, townspeople flee while adventurers and soldiers form lines outside the threatened areas. The peaceful roads Heiss traveled before are transformed into evacuation routes. An elderly survivor remembers a previous stampede that erased the village where his family lived. His memories show why the kingdom treats the approaching horde as an existential threat rather than another large monster hunt. Heiss quietly pays for one final night's lodging and prepares to fight. He knows that once the horde reaches the capital, there may be no opportunity to rest until the crisis is over. In front of the royal capital, the defenders receive a devastating estimate. Roughly 70,000 monsters are moving toward them. If the line breaks, the creatures will pour directly into the city. The first wave alone contains around 10,000 monsters. Adventurers, soldiers, and clan members brace themselves as the mass approaches the defensive line. Heiss does not wait behind the walls. He leaps forward into the open ground, prompting Sasha to shout his name as he prepares Weapon Master for large-scale combat. Heiss summons a heavy rocket system and aims directly into the monster horde. Against thousands of targets, the ability's strange military weapons are finally being used on the scale they were designed for. Multiple explosives rain into the advancing wave. Detonations rip through tightly packed monsters, slowing the stampede before it can fully crash into the defenders. Heiss switches weapons again and brings out a massive rotary gun. He braces himself and tells the approaching monsters to get ready. The minigun erupts, sweeping continuous fire across the battlefield. Rows of monsters collapse as Heiss uses overwhelming ranged firepower to thin a horde that normal adventurers would have to fight one enemy at a time. Sasha watches the barrage from the defensive line and realizes just how different Heiss's blessing has become. His long-range destructive ability gives the defenders a weapon unlike anything else on the field. From the shadows, Crane recognizes that the decisive battle has begun. The demon watches Heiss and Sacred from within the chaos, still pursuing the personal grudges created by their earlier clashes. Sasha is stunned by the unfamiliar gunfire and asks what kind of weapon Heiss is using. Before she can focus on him, the commanders order the frontline troops forward to meet the surviving monsters. The rest of the defenders charge. Adventurers cut into the wave from multiple directions, while Heiss continues supporting them with firepower from farther back. Elite fighters reveal powerful blessings, such as enlargement, using abilities suited to mass combat. The kingdom's strongest adventurers are finally fighting together, instead of on separate quests. Other veterans display abilities like vibration and poison, destroying clusters of monsters through entirely different methods. Heiss realizes why the great clans remain such important military forces. During the chaos, Heiss narrowly avoids an attack that is clearly aimed at him, rather than the battlefield in general. He begins searching for the hidden enemy manipulating the fight. Sasha also notices the unnatural attacks, and prepares to destroy whatever is interfering. Wind begins cutting across the battlefield, immediately reminding her of Crane. Crane catches Heiss with another wind attack, forcing him back before he can line up a clean shot. The demon's control of the open battlefield makes every direct approach dangerous, and Heiss realizes he cannot simply overpower the wind barrier by himself. An explosion rocks the field, and Heiss immediately recognizes Crane as the demon attacking him. On another part of the battlefield, Sasha spots the same enemy and tells Reynold they need to go after the demon. Sasha and Reynold cannot chase Crane because the stampede monsters flood into their path. As they fight through the horde, a violent shaking suddenly draws Sasha's attention towards something much larger approaching the battlefield. The ground erupts as an enormous rock-armored turtle emerges among the monsters. Reynold shouts Sasha's name, warning her that the stampede has produced a threat far beyond the ordinary creatures surrounding them. Sasha and Reynold decide they have to deal with the giant turtle, leaving Crane to Heiss. Seeing them turn away, the demon mockingly tells Heiss that his allies have abandoned him, but Heiss remains focused on the fight. Heiss confronts Crane directly and quickly discovers how troublesome the wind ability is. In open terrain, the demon can redirect attacks and control the space around him far more easily. Heiss fires again, but Crane's wind interferes with the projectile. The exchange proves that simply using a stronger gun will not solve a matchup where the attack cannot reach its target. Crane mocks Heiss' firepower and admits that their abilities are a terrible match for each other. Heiss is powerful at range, but the demon's wind can deflect or disrupt many conventional shots. A swirling wall of air forms around Crane. Heiss realizes that even overwhelming firepower means nothing if every projectile is turned away before it can connect. Rather than wasting ammunition, Heiss starts searching for a way around the wind. If he keeps attacking the same way, the battle could continue indefinitely while the stampede grows worse. Just as Heiss searches for an answer to Crane's wind, Prissy steps in beside him. She tells Heiss to leave the wind to her and simply keep his gun steady, giving him the support he needs instead of trying to win the matchup alone. Crane boasts that as long as his wind shield remains active, nothing Heiss throws at him will ever work. Heiss calmly admits that he probably cannot break through on his own, because Prissy is now preparing to counter the barrier for him. Prissy uses her own wind magic to interfere with Crane's barrier, while Heiss keeps his revolver trained on the demon. Crane is shocked to realize that her wind can break through and disrupt the shield protecting him. Prissy's wind cancels out Crane's defensive current, finally creating the opening Heiss needed. The demon can barely believe that these humans found a way to neutralize the advantage he had been relying on. With Crane driven back, Heiss thanks Prissy for saving him and promises to treat her to tea later. Their light exchange is cut short when someone suddenly screams Sasha's name, making Heiss turn toward the other battlefield. Across the field, Sasha is already exhausted and breathing hard in front of the newly arrived giant turtle. She has no time to recover because the enormous monster now stands directly in the defender's path. An emergency announcement identifies the creature as a king turtle, a new high-level stampede monster estimated around SS plus rank. The defenders are warned that this could become a turning point in the battle. Sasha attacks the king turtle, but her sword barely affects its enormous shell. The monster's defense is far beyond the enemies she cut down earlier. Repeated strikes simply bounce away. Sasha realizes that even her S-rank power cannot easily penetrate the turtle's body, leaving the defenders without a straightforward way to stop it. The king turtle's arrival pushes the entire defense backward, and Sasha realizes that if this continues, the monster wave could reach the city. While her attention is fixed on the giant turtle, an ordinary stampede monster suddenly attacks her from behind. Sasha is already worn down, and more monsters immediately crowd around her after the surprise attack. Reynold fights desperately through the horde, shouting that he is coming, but several enemies continue blocking his route. Another monster lunges at Sasha while Reynold calls her name. The attackers around her are being cut down, but Sasha is so exhausted that even the smaller enemies have become dangerous while the king turtle remains nearby. The king turtle begins charging a powerful energy blast. Reynold sees what is happening and desperately tries to reach Sasha, but monsters keep him occupied. Besides the boss, Sasha realizes the attack is almost ready, and that help may come too late. The king turtle fires its massive beam directly at Sasha. As the blast erupts across the battlefield, Reynold screams her name while Sasha looks into the attack, and believes for a moment that this may be the end. When the blast clears, Sasha finds Heiss standing over her, badly injured, but alive. He reached her at the last possible moment and took the danger upon himself, leaving Sasha stunned to see the man who resents her protecting her again. Sasha asks why Heiss protected her after everything that happened between them. He tells her not to ask because his body simply moved before he had time to think. Heiss is badly injured from taking the attack, but he refuses to make the rescue dramatic. Sasha can only stare at him, realizing that his resentment did not stop him from risking himself for her. Heiss reminds Sasha that she is still chasing the dream she refused to abandon. If she dies here, there is no way she can ever make that dream real, so he orders her to survive. He tells Sasha that he knows she can keep fighting because he once believed in her more than anyone. The words give her the resolve to stand again. Sasha thanks Heiss and steps back onto the battlefield. A golden light begins surrounding her as she decides to finish the fight rather than waste the life he just protected. Sasha's power suddenly surges beyond its previous limit. Under the extreme pressure of the stampede, she enters an awakening state and charges with strength the others have never seen from her. The observers recognize the phenomenon as an awakening, an extraordinary breakthrough that can occur when someone surpasses their normal limits during a crisis. A brilliant golden sword forms in Sasha's hands. The weapon reflects the new level of her blessing and gives her the offensive power she lacked against the king turtle. Sasha unleashes the awakened blade on the massive monster. The golden strike cuts into defenses that her earlier attacks could not penetrate. The attack tears through the king turtle and the surrounding battlefield. Sasha declares that none of the monsters will get past her blade as Sacred regains momentum. After the stampede battle, Heiss wakes in an infirmary. The first face he sees belongs to someone checking whether the heavily injured S-rank adventurer has finally regained consciousness. Prissy visits Heiss in the infirmary carrying food and immediately starts talking as though nothing has changed. She explains that she helped with first aid after the stampede and checks how badly he was hurt. Heiss's thoughts quickly turn to Sasha and her awakening. When he asks what happened after he lost consciousness, Prissy tells him that if he wants the full answer, he should ask Sasha himself. Sasha comes to Heiss's room and apologizes. Unlike their earlier argument, she does not try to excuse the past. She simply admits that she is sorry for the pain and misunderstandings between them. Heiss asks about her awakened ability instead of dwelling on the apology. Sasha says the crisis forced something inside her to change, and Heiss tells her that the new strength puts her closer to achieving the dream she still follows. Sasha then makes a surprising request. She wants Heiss to come back to Sacred. She believes there may still be a place for him beside the people who once pushed him away. The proposal immediately creates chaos. Prissy objects loudly, and other members argue about whether Heiss belongs with Sacred, while Heiss looks increasingly exhausted by everyone deciding his future for him. Heiss ends the argument himself. He says he does not need a team, and intends to continue traveling solo, rejecting both Sasha's invitation and Precy's exaggerated claims that they are destined partners. The room becomes so noisy that Heiss decides recovering alone would be easier than listening to everyone fight over him. He makes it clear that no one has permission to choose his companions for him. 6 months after the stampede, ordinary life has gradually returned. Sacred summons Team 1000 again, giving the younger adventurers another chance to prove how far they have progressed. Team 1000 receives an A-rank request to defeat a king ogre. Although the mission is above their current rank, Sacred seniors believe the group can handle it with proper teamwork. The hunt immediately goes wrong when 3 powerful ogres appear instead of 1. Roland and his teammates are forced into a fight far more dangerous than the request described. After repeated attacks, Team 1000 becomes exhausted while the ogres remain active. Their formation begins collapsing, and the young adventurers fear they may not have enough strength left to escape. Gunfire suddenly tears into the monsters. Heiss arrives in time to save Team 1000, destroying the immediate threat before the exhausted adventurers are overwhelmed. Roland and the others thank Heiss, while he checks whether anyone is seriously injured. Their surprise grows when they realize an S-rank adventurer came to help instead of ignoring a lower-ranked party's problem. The story shifts toward the 6 forbidden labyrinths, legendary places considered among the greatest unknown dangers in the world. Unlike normal dungeons, each labyrinth has its own bizarre environment and rules. Examples include places such as the Magnetic Forest, the Dream and Star-Floating Castle, Mount Necro, and other regions where ordinary navigation and monster knowledge may be useless. Very few people know reliable information about the forbidden labyrinths, and parties that enter often fail to return. Their mystery is precisely why the royal family needs someone capable of investigating one. At the palace, King Barbaros asks Heiss to conquer one of the 6 forbidden labyrinths. The request is far more dangerous than the missions normally given, even to S-rank adventurers. Heiss is stunned that the king expects him to enter a forbidden labyrinth at all. Barbaros confirms the order and asks whether Heiss is willing to take responsibility for the mission. The target is the Great Delmadrome Labyrinth. Old records and a mysterious seal connect the place to ancient artifacts, lost adventurers, and information that may even help Heiss understand Weapon Master. Precy overhears enough of the assignment to immediately become interested. She wants to join Heiss again, but he insists this mission is too dangerous to treat like another shared trip. Heiss tells Precy not to follow him into the Forbidden Labyrinth. She complains that she has grown stronger, but he refuses to gamble with her life, simply because she wants another adventure. Before he leaves, Precy mentions that Sasha and Sacred are also attempting dangerous challenges of their own. Heiss listens, but avoids letting concern for Sasha change his plans. Precy finally accepts that Heiss is going alone and asks him to tell her everything when he returns. Heiss promises he will, treating survival as the only acceptable ending. As Heiss departs, Precy tells him to stay safe. Her smile cannot hide the fact that she knows the Great Delmadrome Labyrinth has killed people far stronger than ordinary adventurers. Heiss travels to the desert nation of Dazara, the region closest to the Forbidden Labyrinth. The harsh landscape and fortress-like city mark the beginning of a completely different kind of expedition. At the local clan headquarters, officials check Heiss's royal documents and the request tied to the Great Labyrinth. He is directed toward the clan master, who knows more about the area's history. Heiss meets Bargain, an enormous veteran whose presence is as intimidating as his reputation. Bargain confirms that he is the man responsible for briefing Heiss before the expedition. Bargain explains that he also received the royal request, but has no intention of hiding how dangerous the task is. The Great Delmadrome Labyrinth is tied to wounds and losses he has carried for years. Instead of immediately respecting Heiss, Bargain dismisses him as a young S-rank who may not understand what he is walking into. Heiss's pride and blunt attitude quickly turn the conversation hostile. When the discussion touches the adventurers who fled the Great Labyrinth in the past, Heiss refuses to call them cowards. Anyone who risked death to bring information back deserves more respect than that. Bargain takes offense at Heiss's tone, and Heiss responds that there is no point listening to someone who insults the people who survived. Their briefing abruptly becomes a confrontation. Bargain attacks to test him, calling Heiss a little punk. Heiss draws Weapon Master and answers rather than backing down. Heiss avoids Bargain's heavy strike and fires back. The veteran's speed and toughness immediately prove that he is more than a large man with a bad temper. Bargain presses the attack, forcing Heiss to use stronger weapons and sharper movement. Heiss responds by escalating instead of allowing the veteran to dominate the test. The two clash violently, and Bargain finally grins. Heiss has shown enough ability for the clanmaster to stop treating him like a reckless child. Heiss brings out a rapid-fire weapon and tells Bargain to stop messing with him. The strange firearm catches the veteran's attention for a reason. Heiss does not yet understand. Bargain studies the weapon closely and abruptly changes his attitude. Its design resembles something he once saw in the hands of a man from his own past. Laughing, Bargain says the weapon reminds him of Nobunaga. The name immediately gets Heiss's attention because it matches the owner of the ancient diary Ibis identified. Heiss asks whether Bargain truly knew Nobunaga. The veteran confirms it and realizes Heiss has already met Ibis, another person whose life was closely connected to the mysterious adventurer. Bargain tells Heiss to come with him and promises to explain everything he knows about the Great Labyrinth and Nobunaga. The pointless test fight finally gives way to the information Heiss came for. Inside the Stone Sovereign Clanmaster's room, Bargain reveals that he once belonged to the same legendary team as Nobunaga. Ibis and several founders of the great clans were connected to that group as well. The old emblem belonged to a team that included people who later became enormously influential. Bargain remembers how Ibis followed Nobunaga everywhere, while the group challenged dangers no one else understood. Bargain clarifies that Nobunaga was not merely a famous adventurer to him, he was a friend. Seeing Heiss wield similar weapons makes the old memories impossible to ignore. He then shows Heiss the scars left by the Great Delmadrome Labyrinth. Several companions who entered with him died inside, and the survivors barely escaped with information about the impossible place. Bargain asks whether Heiss still wants to go after hearing how many people the labyrinth killed. Heiss answers that he once promised to become the strongest, and he refuses to turn away from the path now. Heiss says conquering the labyrinth is another step toward that goal. Bargain recognizes the same stubborn drive he once saw in Nobunaga, even if Heiss's reasons are entirely his own. Bargain describes the Great Delmadrome Labyrinth as the most disorienting dungeon he has experienced. Adventurers can lose all sense of direction, distance, and even the shape of the world around them. Even those lucky enough to escape may wander for days through landscapes that do not resemble a normal dungeon. Bargain remembers skies, ruins, and terrain that felt as though they belonged to another world. The description strongly resembles the unfamiliar world behind Heiss's firearms. Nobunaga also wrote that parts of the labyrinth looked strangely familiar to him, deepening the connection between Weapon Master and another world. Bargain gives Heiss the hard-earned records left by the previous expedition. Heiss insists that the people who risked their lives to bring this information home should never be dismissed as cowards. The veteran is moved by Heiss's response. Instead of mocking him, Bargain thanks him for respecting the dead and admits that the younger adventurer may understand more than he first assumed. Heiss makes his decision clear. He will conquer the Great Delmadrome Labyrinth. The declaration is not bravado anymore. He now understands exactly how many people failed before him. Before the conversation ends, someone bursts into the room, apologizing for being late. The energetic newcomer immediately changes the mood. The woman introduces herself as Hijiri, another S-rank adventurer. Heiss is surprised that someone so casual carries a rank equal to his own. Hijiri's strength is already known through reports and rumors, making her sudden arrival more than a simple introduction. She has apparently come because the Forbidden Labyrinth mission interests her. To silence Heiss's disbelief, Hijiri shows her official S-rank certification. Bargain confirms that her status is genuine even if her personality does not match Heiss's image of an elite adventurer. Hijiri introduces herself again with exaggerated enthusiasm and immediately starts treating Heiss like a future rival. Heiss is far less excited about the idea. She offers a handshake and says she looks forward to working with him. Heiss accepts the greeting cautiously, already sensing that Hijiri will be difficult to keep at a distance. Hijiri boasts about the dangerous fights she has survived and her unusual martial arts background. Bargain explains that she earned her rank legitimately. even if her straightforward obsession with strength makes her seem reckless. Heiss admits that he knows almost nothing about Hijiri's background or goals. Bargain, meanwhile, is amused that two unusually powerful solo adventurers have ended up in the same place. Hijiri says she came partly because the region is her hometown, and partly because a great labyrinth is the perfect place to test herself. She treats extreme danger as an opportunity rather than a warning. Heiss tells her he does not need help because the king assigned the mission to him. Hijiri answers that she wants to clear the labyrinth with Heiss and then fight him afterward. Hijiri openly asks Bargan to let her duel Heiss. She says elite adventurers interest her and wants to measure herself against one of the strongest people she has encountered. Heiss refuses the duel and tells her not to make his mission more complicated. Hijiri responds that if he insists on traveling alone, she can simply follow without asking permission. She proposes a deal. Clear the great labyrinth first, then fight to see who is stronger. Heiss rejects the duel again but realizes he may not be able to stop her from entering the same dungeon. Hijiri insists that Heiss is strong enough to be worth challenging. He answers with a flat refusal, showing far less interest in proving himself than she expected. Bargan finally tells them to stop arguing and hopes both will return safely. Heiss leaves without agreeing to a duel, while Hijiri behaves as though the matter is only postponed. Hijiri follows Heiss on the road and immediately starts asking about food and supplies. The supposedly serious Forbidden Labyrinth expedition begins with Heiss wondering why he allowed such a noisy person anywhere near him. Heiss clarifies that until the labyrinth is cleared, survival comes before competition. Hijiri happily agrees, already imagining the fight she expects to have with him afterward. At camp, Hijiri devours Heiss's cooking and praises it enthusiastically. She calls him talented at everything. While Heiss wonders how a person this carefree reached S rank, Heiss asks about Hijiri's blessing and training. Her answer hints that her strength comes from years of martial arts, rather than a simple magical shortcut, but the full story remains for later. As they approach the great Delmadrome labyrinth, Heiss reviews what Bargan taught him. This is not an ordinary dungeon, and familiar rules may stop applying the moment they enter. Hijiri says she has prepared herself, and still intends to fight Heiss once they survive. Heiss cannot tell whether her confidence is courage, recklessness, or both. While traveling, Hijiri lists stories she has heard about Heiss's feats and the stampede. She admits that those rumors are one reason she became so determined to challenge him. Heiss learns that Hijiri has a habit of fighting strong people wherever she goes. She treats duels as a way to measure her progress, even when strangers find the obsession ridiculous. Hijiri explains that her original companions once shared a simple dream of becoming strong together. As her power grew, however, the difference between them changed the relationships she depended on. The experience pushed Hijiri toward a lonely idea of strength. She began chasing stronger opponents because proving herself felt like the only way to keep moving after losing the closeness of her old team. Heiss recognized something familiar in the story. Both of them became obsessed with strength after losing important relationships, even though the details of their pasts are very different. During another stop in town, Hijiri complains loudly about food and water, while Heiss tries to ignore her. Her normal behavior makes the legendary S-rank title feel almost absurd. The entrance to the labyrinth finally comes into view. Hijiri turns the last stretch into a race, declaring that the first person there wins before sprinting ahead. Heiss and Hijiri stand before the great Delmadrome labyrinth. The enormous ruined entrance looks less like a conventional dungeon and more like a gateway into a forgotten world. Inside, the scale of the ruins astonishes even Hijiri. Heiss reminds her that this is one of the forbidden labyrinths and tells her not to run ahead simply because the first chamber looks empty. Hijiri immediately ignores the warning and explores farther. Heiss follows while watching the architecture, which contains structures and mechanisms that do not fit the normal technology of their world. The floor suddenly collapses beneath them. Hijiri begins sinking with the broken stone and yells in confusion as the dungeon's first trap activates without warning. Heiss dives after her and reaches out before she disappears. The collapsing ground continues pulling them downward, leaving no time to search for a safer route. After the fall, the two regain their bearings inside another section of the labyrinth. Heiss checks whether Hijiri is awake and tries to determine where the trap has carried them. A passage ahead feels like another point of no return. Hijiri admits they were careless, and Heiss accepts that from this point onward, they must treat every doorway as a possible trap. Hijiri quickly recovers enough to tease Heiss about saving her. Their close call becomes another joke, while Heiss reminds her that careless movement nearly got them separated. The explorers discover an old signal device and other machinery embedded in the ruins. The technology resembles traces of the mysterious Otherworld connected to Heiss's weapons. Black goblins appear before they can investigate further. Hijiri tells Heiss to hold back, because he already saved her once, and she wants to return the favor. Hijiri activates her blessing, and surrounds herself with a strange metallic power. Heiss watches closely, finally getting a clear look at how the other S-rank adventurer fights. Her blessing is Metal Master, another rare master-type ability. It gives Hijiri extraordinary control over metal, which she combines with the close combat martial arts taught by her grandmother. Hijiri charges directly into the black goblins. Metal-enhanced movements and martial techniques let her overwhelm enemies that would be dangerous to ordinary adventurers. A crushing strike sends the monsters flying. Hijiri's style relies on her own body as much as the blessing, proving that years of training matter just as much as the title Metal Master. When the last goblins fall, Hijiri proudly asks what Heiss thinks. He cannot deny that her fighting ability is impressive, even if her personality still exhausts him. More black goblins emerge and surround Hijiri, but she looks excited rather than frightened. Another large group simply gives her more targets for the martial arts she wants to prove. Hijiri tears through the new wave while Heiss observes their behavior. He notices the black goblins attack with unusual coordination and numbers, suggesting the labyrinth's monsters are more organized than normal variants. Heiss takes the lead against the next enemies, using Weapon Master to clear a path while Hijiri recovers. Their temporary partnership starts becoming genuine battlefield cooperation. 12 days into the labyrinth expedition, Heiss and Hijiri have established a routine. Heiss cooks another meal, and Hijiri enthusiastically thanks him while praising how reliable he is both in and out of combat. During a quiet meal, Heiss finally asks why Hijiri is so desperate to fight strong people. She admits that there are plenty of powerful adventurers, but proving herself against them has become deeply personal. Hijiri begins telling him about her childhood. She was an orphan raised by an elderly martial arts instructor she called Granny, who took her in and trained her instead of leaving her alone. Granny's dojo became Hijiri's home. The training was difficult, but she remembers it happily, because the old woman treated martial arts as a way to build both strength and character. Granny taught Hijiri that it was fine to clench her fists and aim for the top. Becoming the strongest became intertwined with the dream and discipline her guardian passed down to her. By the time Hijiri officially became an adventurer, Granny had passed away. The loss left Hijiri determined to prove that the martial art she inherited could stand above every other fighting style. Hijiri explains that defeating the strongest opponents is how she intends to validate Granny's teachings. Heiss finally understands why every powerful adventurer immediately becomes a potential rival in her eyes. Even after hearing the story, Heiss still refuses to promise a duel. Hijiri complains, but he tells her that strength should not force someone into a fight they do not want. On the 13th day, the expedition continues deeper. The labyrinth keeps changing in ways that make ordinary maps nearly useless, but the two have learned to move more carefully. Hijiri jokes that adventurers should be rewarded for surviving a place this miserable. Heiss notices another opening in the floor and tells her not to walk into a trap while complaining. A new area appears that looks like ruins from an entirely different civilization. Heiss and Hijiri stop to examine it, both realizing the labyrinth is not simply a sequence of underground caves. The buildings resemble an abandoned town. Heiss remembers Bargain's warning that the Great Delmadrome Labyrinth sometimes feels like pieces of another world stitched together. Hijiri discovers another object resembling Heiss's weapons and asks whether it might also come from that other world. Heiss agrees that the similarity is becoming too obvious to ignore. The pair descend through more ruined structures, wondering how many expeditions were swallowed by the labyrinth before them. Broken machines and unfamiliar materials make the place feel less natural with every step. Strange holes and traces cover the ground ahead. Heist suspects another monster or environmental hazard and stops Hijiri before she walks directly into it. The trap suddenly erupts. Heist and Hijiri are forced to dodge as the ground explodes around them, confirming that the apparently empty area was waiting for prey. A new creature attacks from below and forces the pair to retreat. Heist detects a strange smell in the air and realizes the monster may be using something more dangerous than simple physical attacks. A gigantic mouth-like creature rises before them. Its appearance is unlike anything Heist has seen in ordinary dungeons, reinforcing that the labyrinth contains monsters with completely unfamiliar biology. Heist studies the monster's circular mouth and admits he has never encountered anything similar, even in high-level dungeons. Hijiri prepares to test whether brute force will work. The creature lunges with surprising speed. Its body or skin proves abnormally tough, and Hijiri warns Heist that ordinary attacks may not be enough to stop it. Heist recalls a clue about a vulnerable core inside the monster's mouth. He shifts from firing randomly at the body to targeting the one structure that may actually kill it. Several mouth creatures swarm the area at once. Heist fires into the group while Hijiri keeps them from surrounding him, turning the fight into another test of their growing coordination. Heist uses a long-range weapon to pierce one creature directly. The attack reaches deeper than the earlier shots and begins exposing the weakness he identified. The monsters keep advancing even after taking damage. Heist concludes that they can endure far more punishment than ordinary dungeon creatures and tells Hijiri not to let them close in. Hijiri is caught by one of the creatures, forcing Heist to attack its vulnerable parts in rapid succession. He saves her before the monster can drag her away. Another strange enemy appears, shaped more like a floating blade or mechanical predator. Heist momentarily forgets what he learned about it and has to react before the new attack reaches them. The pair fight through increasingly bizarre creatures. Heist wonders whether the labyrinth is collecting monsters from different places rather than producing one consistent ecosystem. They cross a hazardous zone filled with a destructive environmental effect. Hijiri calls it one of the worst areas so far, while Heist focuses on getting them across before either is trapped. A sealed door blocks the route, and Hijiri realizes she did not bring the right tool. Heist uses another Weapon Master device instead, prompting her to joke that his blessing can solve almost anything. While they rest, Hijiri asks how Weapon Master first awakened. Heist tells her about being expelled from Sacred, entering the dragon's territory, and activating the blessing only when he was certain he was about to die. The next zone becomes freezing cold. Heist and Hijiri struggle through the sudden temperature change, another reminder that the forbidden labyrinth can change environments without warning. They emerge into the ruins of a massive amusement park, complete with a giant wheel and structures that could never have been built by the civilization they know. The sight leaves both adventurers speechless. Heist recognizes the area as another broken fragment of an unfamiliar world. Rather than wasting time trying to understand the impossible scenery, the pair keep moving before monsters find them. The abandoned amusement park grows even more unsettling as they pass ruined rides and collapsed buildings. Heist and Hijiri both sense that something is waiting for them deeper inside. A demon finally steps into view and calmly congratulates them for making it this far. His composed manners are more disturbing than open hostility, because he clearly expected adventurers to reach him eventually. The demon introduces himself as Rocinante of the Great Demon Race. Heist demands to know who he is and why he is inside the Forbidden Labyrinth, while Rocinante seems amused by the lack of courtesy. Rocinante apologizes mockingly and announces that Heist and Hijiri will make excellent food for the creatures he controls. The threat is followed by a violent disturbance deeper in the ruins. An enormous 8-headed dragon emerges. Its body fills the ruined area, and even Heist immediately recognizes that this is no ordinary boss monster. The creature is revealed in full, a monstrous 8-headed dragon powerful enough to stand as the central threat of the labyrinth's current level. Rocinante identifies the dragon as one of the legendary 7 catastrophes. The name places it among monsters remembered for causing destruction on a scale far beyond standard dungeon threats. Hijiri recognizes the term from old stories. The 7 catastrophes are monsters linked to historical disasters, and seeing one alive confirms that the demon's plans reach far beyond this labyrinth. Heist remembers information connected to old legends, and the ancient records he has studied. The eight-headed creature resembles a mythological monster from the same mysterious source as several Otherworld concepts. Hijiri angrily asks Roshinante why demons would create or unleash something so dangerous. He treats the question casually, implying that human suffering is merely part of a much larger objective. Roshinante finally states the goal openly. The demons intend to bring about the extinction of humanity. Heiss and Hijiri realize that the stampede and earlier demon activity may only have been preliminary steps. Heiss raises his gun and says he does not care about Roshinante's grand speeches. If the demon and the eight-headed dragon are standing between him and the labyrinth's objective, then he will destroy them. Heiss opens fire on the dragon, but ordinary bullets barely affect its scales. The first exchange immediately proves that even Weapon Master's normal firearms are not strong enough. Roshinante recognizes Heiss's weapon as a gun, revealing that the demon knows more about Otherworld technology than he should. Heiss ignores the provocation and prepares something heavier. Heiss summons a much larger explosive weapon and fires directly into the dragon. The blast hits with enough force to shake the ruined battlefield. Even the stronger attack fails to produce decisive damage. Roshinante comments on Weapon Master while the dragon remains standing, and Heiss realizes the monster's durability is even worse than expected. Roshinante offers Heiss a place beside the demons, claiming his unusual blessing would be useful to their plans. Heiss rejects the suggestion and tells him to stop pretending they share the same goals. The demon continues trying to manipulate the situation, but Hijiri interrupts and attacks. She refuses to stand by while Roshinante talks about using Heiss or destroying humanity. Hijiri engages the dragon at close range and tells Heiss to keep firing. Her job becomes creating openings against a creature far too large for either of them to defeat casually. Roshinante interferes with the fight, adding his own attacks, while the dragon pressures Hijiri. The pair are now dealing with both an intelligent demon and a catastrophe-class monster simultaneously. The dragon catches Hijiri in a violent counterattack. Heiss rushes to support her, preventing the monster from finishing the advantage. Hijiri is surprised that Heiss can still move after the punishment they have taken. Roshinante mocks human determination, while the two adventurers refuse to abandon the fight. Roshinante feeds or transfers something into the dragon and announces that it is time for the creature to become more dangerous. Heiss realizes the first phase of the battle was only preparation. The eight-headed monster changes as demonic power spreads through it. Heiss watches the creature become even more monstrous and recognizes that their current weapons will not be enough. Hijiri warns the dragon not to get too confident and attacks again, but the creature's transformed body absorbs punishment that should have crippled it. Parts of the dragon's body begin melting or changing rather than simply breaking. Hijiri is horrified by how much damage it can endure and still continue attacking. The monster releases a dangerous corrosive or melting attack. Heiss warns Hijiri to stay clear, as the battlefield itself begins breaking down around them. Multiple heads close in at once, forcing Hijiri into a desperate evasive sequence. The transformed dragon can attack from too many directions for a normal frontline strategy to work. Hijiri calls the creature stubborn and keeps fighting, refusing to retreat even when the dragon immediately recovers from damage. Heiss changes to a precision rifle and targets one of the heads. Rather than wasting ammunition across the whole body, he begins trying to eliminate the heads individually. A focused shot finally destroys one head. Hijiri celebrates the small victory, but Heiss waits to see whether the damage will actually remain permanent. The answer is discouraging. Even destroying a head is not enough to stop the monster. Roshinante mocks the attempt and calls their resistance futile. The demon explains that ordinary attacks cannot truly kill the creature known as Orochi. Heiss realizes the monster is based on another myth familiar through the strange knowledge surrounding Weapon Master. Orochi regenerates, restoring the heads they fought so hard to destroy. The battlefield returns to almost the same state as before, erasing their progress. The regenerated monster immediately attacks again. Heiss is forced back while trying to understand what condition must be met to stop the regeneration. Heiss admits their current attacks are accomplishing almost nothing. Without the right weapon, or a way to overwhelm Orochi completely, the fight will only exhaust them first. As the battle drags on, Heiss feels himself falling behind. Roshinante becomes bored with the struggle and pushes Orochi to finish the humans rather than keep playing with them. Heiss gathers enough power for another concentrated attack and fires. The blast forces Orochi back, but he still cannot be certain it will prevent another regeneration. A massive beam-like strike erupts across the battlefield. Hijiri shouts Heiss's name as the attack grows far beyond the scale of the weapons he used earlier. The resulting explosion engulfs Orochi and much of the ruined area. For several seconds, nothing can be seen through the blast. Roshinante watches with amusement rather than fear. He treats Heiss's desperate attacks like entertainment and invites him to continue the deadly game. Hijiri is wounded again, and Heiss asks why she took or blocked an attack that could have been avoided. She laughs off the pain, still thinking about the duel she promised herself. Hijiri tells Heiss not to worry about her and reminds him that they cannot have their fight if either of them dies here. She calls herself the strongest adventurer with characteristic confidence. Watching Hijiri cling so stubbornly to her dream makes Heiss remember his own. Her obsession with becoming stronger forces him to ask what originally made strength so important to him. Heiss remembers his childhood with Sasha. After seeing her hurt and crying, he once decided that he wanted enough strength to protect her, so nobody could make her suffer again. That promise slowly became the declaration that shaped his life. He would become the strongest. Even after his relationship with Sasha broke apart, the goal remained. The realization connects Heiss's past with the strange power of Weapon Master. Another weapon becomes available through the blessing, as though his determination has pushed the ability one step further. Roshinante taunts Heiss and asks what happened to Hijiri, assuming she has abandoned him or been defeated. Heiss stands alone for the moment and prepares to reveal the new weapon. Roshinante continues offering Heiss a place with the demons, insisting that such an unusual human should not waste his power defending humanity. Heiss answers that the demon can take the offer and shut up. Heiss raises a new Weapon Master system and declares that he will finish the fight now. The scale of the equipment immediately surprises Roshinante. The demon laughs that Heiss's weapons still cannot scratch Orochi enough to matter. Heiss stops arguing and focuses entirely on the final attack. Weapon Master produces a Bunker Buster GBU-28, a massive bomb designed to destroy targets protected by extreme defenses. Even Heiss understands that this is on another level from his previous firearms. The bomb drops toward Orochi. Roshinante finally recognizes the danger, while the dragon reacts too late to avoid the incoming weapon. The Bunker Buster strikes and detonates. The impact tears into the catastrophe-class monster, with force far beyond the explosions Heiss used earlier. As the blast expands, Heiss tells Orochi and Roshinante to go to hell. The entire battlefield disappears beneath the detonation. The explosion spreads across the ruined landscape and overwhelms Orochi's massive body. For the first time, the dragon's regeneration cannot simply erase the damage immediately. When the smoke clears, Heiss walks through a crater filled with the remains of the battle. The enormous monster has finally been reduced to something that no longer threatens him. Hijiri finds Heiss alive and asks whether he is all right. She admits she thought they were both about to die, while Heiss jokes that he should be asking her the same question. Heiss examines the aftermath and realizes Weapon Master allowed him to use the Bunker Buster only at this critical moment. The new weapon feels like proof that he has taken another step toward his goal. The victory is incomplete. Roshinante survives the destruction in a badly damaged state and seethes at the humans who ruined his plan, showing that the demon threat is far from over. Roshinante explains that demons have already begun establishing ways to move between the demon realm and the human realm. Even though Orochi was destroyed, the larger invasion plan is still progressing. Hijiri realizes the implication. More demons may soon be able to appear in the human world without relying on isolated accidents. The danger Heiss encountered is part of something much bigger. Before disappearing, Roshinante mentions the Great Salt Lake and hints that another confrontation is already developing there. Heiss recognizes the name as one of the 6 forbidden labyrinths. Hijiri confirms that the Great Salt Lake is another forbidden labyrinth and asks what Heiss plans to do if demons are active there. Heiss answers that ignoring them is no longer realistic. Heiss remembers that other powerful adventurers are operating around the Great Salt Lake, including people strong enough to stand beside him. The next battlefield may already be forming without his knowledge. Roshinante's warning echoes as the demon withdraws, promising that their paths will cross again. Heiss and Hijiri are left with proof that defeating one catastrophe has only exposed a larger war. The arc closes on the terrifying image of another monstrous threat, accompanied by the warning that those who oppose the demons will die. Heiss's path to becoming the strongest is now tied directly to a conflict threatening the entire human world.